Welcome back to The Chatter. The band name War had a big hit in 1975 with advice we all need right now. They sang, "Why Can't We Be Friends?" Let's welcome Pastor Stephen Martens from the Faith Baptist Church of Utah Valley to our tables. Welcome, Pastor Steve.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So, in these trying times, people will often look to their faith for hope or questions or seeking advice. How is that looking for your congregation?
Well, there's hope for everybody because the Bible tells us that the rain falls on the just and the unjust. It's not just hard times for those who are maybe struggling more than others. Everyone is in need of hope. And even in the book of Proverbs, it talks about those who think there's a lion without, so they stay within because of fear that grips them. And with Jesus, he gives us hope because he brings true hope, not just in a bag of goodies, not in a method or a mantra, but in the person of Jesus Christ. And I'm so happy to have hope that is real and that is lasting. And many people have been very encouraged even through this storm. I've been calling it a storm or a season because they have been able to find in the midst of the storm, Jesus is there, Jesus is present, and he offers hope in the most tumultuous of times.
He does, and I think it's through each other that often he does that. And that's what I've noticed, I think, with the COVID, as hard as it's been, I think those lessons of hope and reach, I think that's when Christ draws us and makes us grow and learn even more is through those hard times. And I really have felt that connection with the whole world, not just my faith, but with everyone.
Oh yeah, yeah. Facebook is one of those things where the little quick blips of what people's thoughts or their encouragements have been that maybe people share and pass along back and forth to each other. And those are momentary. Those don't, keep us through the entire day or through these 9+ weeks now that we've been under lockdown and gridlock. But when you come to know who Jesus is as the person of God in the flesh, Emmanuel, it's far more than a Facebook post or a share. Or I had somebody text me today, "Do you need eggs?" As eggs were hard to find for a little while, and we have a big family, so eggs go fast at our table. But toilet paper, eggs, we've had people given cash, to help out other folks, so lots of different encouragements and helps that
I've heard that meat is now coming to be a hard item to find. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no matter the faith, I think naturally people in church settings like to get together in gatherings. So I think people may be missing that, being able to congregate. Are you able to meet with your members, and because that's probably changed just very recently?
Oh yeah, it's been challenging for sure. And while text messages or phone calls are nice, the in-person greeting is far better.
Definitely.
However, when we have to maintain that distance and can't embrace as you may normally want to embrace, or even just to shake hands where some people aren't accustomed to that at this time and get a little bit worried, the in-person meeting is far more encouraging. But God has been so good to give us little blips or opportunities where we were within the 10 on that initial phase of 10 people or less, keeping social distances. And I had a few impromptu prayer meetings at church where it just happened to be a few people just stopped by to bring something by the church or to just see if anyone was there. And I had several folks show up at one time where we were still within the restriction. We set up safely, had all the proper guidelines in place, and what a great encouragement it was just to be face to face with each other. But something we found is the real core of that hope is all of us turned our faces not to each other, but to Jesus Christ for that hope. And boy, it was wonderful. And those were those early days, but it's gotten better and better and better as these weeks have gone by.
So what does your congregation look like now? Are you all back together? And how many are in your group?
Yeah, we are back together as of 2 weeks ago, thanks to a pastor up in Ogden who'd been kind of a watchdog, I would say, for a lot of Christian churches who were struggling to find the reasoning for restaurants, cinemas, gyms, bars, everything else, liquor stores that were essential, but churches were not essential. And where Walmart could be deemed as a safe place and they could maintain safe guidelines, but that the churches, even the LDS churches in our communities, can't maintain those safe guidelines. And so him pushing forward, we're actually able to have a meeting a couple of weeks ago with about 10 or 11 pastors from the state who had heard together the good news that Governor Huntsman was going to be bringing down those restrictions from 10 up to 20, and even at that time we're already passing up to no limit, because while we were restricted to 20 at that time, everyone else was opening to no number restriction. And so since 2 weeks ago, our doors have been opened back up for more than 20 now, and we have about 90 in our total congregation between English and Spanish ministry, and been able to help start a few other churches in the valley too, where those churches are also meeting together again, and just greatly encouraged to be hearing each other sing in church, seeing each other smiling and greeting from a distance at somewhat of a point, but to come into the house of God is just a great encouragement.
Wow.
Thanks for live stream. We stayed connected for a while, but it's much better to be in person.
Yeah.
No, so I would agree. We just had a baby blessing for one of my granddaughters yesterday, and I did notice that unity that came with meeting together in a little bit bigger group, and how we thrive and need that connection with others.
Yeah. Absolutely. 1 Corinthians talks about the church is a body of many members fitly joined together. We're not all an ear, and we're not all an eye, we're not all a nose. The Bible says if we were a nose, then where is the hearing? If we were all an eye, then where is the smelling? And so the body fitly joined together finds that unity that the church has.
Yeah.
So there may be those that are feeling very alone in this pandemic, or that might even be angry at God. What might you tell them for more uplifting words?
Well, I think as we see who Jesus is, he is not a Geppetto of puppet string mastery over humankind. He has given free will, and as free will is governed to all of humanity, hardships come, not because he is just out of control and everything is just in a whirling dervish all around us in life, but because life has hardships and it has seasons. Thinking back to the dust storms of Texas and the depression and influenza way back in the 20s, so many hard times, and yet hope is found not in my circumstances, because circumstances make us happy by happenings. Happy birthday on a downer day brings us up for the moment and the sugar high, and then we're Debbie Downer again, perhaps. Hope there's nobody Debbie watching. But we can get that quickly on a roller coaster, but in Jesus, he gives us hope every day with so many different things that he tells us in his word. And I'd be happy to give kind of a short little insight to some hope that he gives us if I have the chance to do that.
Yeah, do so.
Want me to do that now?
Right,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. Well, here's just a great parallel to, I think, as I've called it, a storm or a season right now. In Matthew chapter 14, this is just after Jesus had fed 5,000 with a few barley loaves and fish. And if anybody ever sees a sack lunch show up at a large gathering, nobody's expecting it's going to be a feast tonight. And everyone's going to think, well, where's the real food?
Yeah,
where's the
mine?
rest of the food? And yet in that encounter, there were 12 baskets full picked up after it was all done. So Jesus had just performed an amazing miracle. And then he sends his disciples out to the sea, and he says, I want you to go by boat to the other side. I'm going to send the rest of the crowds away and go up to the mountains to pray. And as he goes away to pray, Jesus being all God, all man, he was not just a good man. He is in fact God-man, Emmanuel, God with us. And so he knew the storm they were about to go into. He knew before March 6th what life was going to look like all over this globe. Well, Utah, as that was when it rolled out for us, but as it would ripple through the rest of the countries and the world around us, he knew these storms were coming, and he sends us out into them. If we had known, we'd had a rush on the stores far in advance to the toilet paper pandemonium.
Yes.
Right.
Well, he sends them out. As they go out, it says here in verse number 24 of Matthew 14, The ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. That means the wind was coming from all four sides. There was no relief. We get into those positions, and I've seen this on Facebook. Can we do a reset 2020? I want to push the do-over button.
Yeah, for sure.
We want to go around it. We want to get over it. We want to go not through it by all means.
Right.
We'd rather just get onto the other side. When is it going to be normal again? Well, they're in that. And then in verse number 25, at the fourth watch, that's about 3 to 6 a.m. in the morning, Jesus went unto them. So in our hard times, Jesus does come to us, but he does not say, come on, you need me, call for my help. He waits for us to see our need of him. Not just things, but him in those hard times. Because as he goes to them on the sea, when they saw him walking on the sea, not only is there a storm, but they say, it's a spirit. Now they've got ghosts and storms. It's a double conundrum for them at this moment. And there's fear in verse 26. But Jesus says to them, and here's the words of encouragement for us, be of good cheer. And then in the middle of this, he says, it is I. Be not afraid. So there's nothing to be afraid of when Jesus is with us. I'm getting chills as I say that because it's the truth. My Bible is a red letter edition, so every time the red letters are written, these are Jesus' actual words. And this isn't a live book. It's not just an old book, a historical account. The Bible calls it the living word. And as he gives us this, be of good cheer, it's storming from every side. They think there's ghosts, and Jesus says, be of good cheer. Turn your frown upside down. It's I. Be not afraid. And then Peter says in verse 28, this is a very familiar story. If it be thou, Lord, bid me come to thee on the water. Most of us would say, are you an idiot? Don't get out of the boat. Get down in the belly of the boat. Stay where it's safe. Get on a life vest or something. But Jesus encourages faith in the storm. And he says, Peter, come. He doesn't say, hold on, I'll be there in a minute. He encourages, get into where it's even more tumultuous. On the deck of that boat, it was scary enough, but Jesus is beckoning him with Peter's faith, get out on the sea and come to me, because Jesus is where there was safety. For one of the first and few times we see someone other than Jesus in a miraculous event. And as Peter is walking on the water, he is fine for a few paces. And then he remembers, oh goodness, it's Corona 2020. And all the pandemonium sits back and, do I have toilet paper on me? What if there's an emergency out here? He panics, and as he begins to sink, the Bible says that Jesus immediately stretched forth his hand and caught him. And then he confronts him. He says, oh, thou of little faith, why did you doubt? So in this time, 9 weeks plus now, it's for us to look to, if Jesus is truly the God of the Bible and the God of this universe, and we believe that he says we are in his hand and he has us, there is nothing for us to doubt. There is nothing for us to fear. He says, it is I, come. Follow me, trust me. Let the world fall apart at the seams, if it really will, and don't be afraid, because I am with you. The other account where there's a storm and Jesus, in that account, is on the boat. They're all freaking out on the deck again. And as they're freaking out on the deck, they say, don't you care that we perish? And Jesus was down asleep on the pillow in the bottom of the boat. And I always say, it's so hard, but we'd much better be off to go down to the belly of the boat and sleep next to Jesus than panic on the deck.
Thank you so much
Yes,
thank
of
you.
for
course.
offering a pillar of hope in the community and on Studio Chatter tonight. That was a
I sure
beautiful
hope it
message.
was. Thank you for
so
having
much.
me.
Thank you.
There's more Studio Chatter coming up.